Hey, what's up? Nathan here from PH Studios. Welcome back to another TDCS tutorial covering Photoshop. And last tutorial we discussed how to tile this texture, and I'm going to leave it the way it was at the end of the video, even though we still have some horizontal line present here. Or I can actually use this grass texture here. So let's actually go ahead and use that one instead. So I have a pretty good tileable texture here. So let's go ahead and let me show that to you. So if we go to the canvas size and adjust the canvas to 192, 192, and I need to delete the green. Actually, there's a quicker way we can do that. Alright, so let's go to canvas size 192 by 192. Alright, so now we have that. Let's go ahead and duplicate this 8 times. And go ahead and do the appropriate stuff. And this will be provided in the download, actually. So you have access to this grass texture. And again, last tutorial we just spent like 5 minutes and it already looked pretty good. But this one took me about an hour to do. I created all those. I continued using the dodge tool to create those brushes, to create the little effects. Darker spot here, as you can see. And it looks pretty good. That's 100% view, and you do not see any horizontal or vertical lines present, actually. Looks very nice. Took an hour to a couple hours to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and modify the middle one, which is layer 0. Let's go ahead and working copy. So let's call that working copy. And create a new group and called display. Select all the ones that are not labeled working copy and move them in display. Okay, so let's go ahead and hide the display layer, or group. And let's go ahead and start working on the advanced grass. So like I said, as we were creating this grass texture, this is the base layer. We will build on this. We will put our towers on this layer, and we will just keep on building on this basic grass layer here. So what we want to do is we want to create a new layer, and we want it to have a similar color to what this is. So let's make it a little bit brighter here. Okay. And go ahead and bring out the brush tool, not the pencil, but the brush tool. And make it about this size here. Let's go ahead and draw that. You can't really see it, so let's bring that down. We just drew that. If you do not want it that big, just go ahead and draw a small one. But you'll see where I'm going with this. So we just have a line that we drew with the brush tool. And if we go and change the blending options, let's bring out the working copy layer again. Let's change blending options. We want to stroke it with black. But what we want to do is lower the opacity a little bit and change the size to about 1. Okay, now that looks pretty good. So what we're going to do is we want to free transform this and make it very small. Click OK. And if we zoom out, we have a little grass here. So what we need to do is we need to take this texture. If you want to keep the stroke the same, go ahead and select both those. Make a new layer and select both of them and merge them. So now the stroke will not be updated. Go ahead and duplicate this layer. Move it around. Transform it. Rotate it. Distort it. Check. Alright, so that's it. So now I have 2 pieces of grass. So you see where this is going. We need to, if you like that, we can merge them both, duplicate them. So now we have 2 additional ones to work with. Rotate it, modify it, warp it, or distort it, move it in close proximity. Well, not while you're warping it. I like that, so I'll accept it, but I also need to move it close to where it was before. So I'll move it here. Let's zoom out. That looks okay. But I will not duplicate those 2. So we have original 1, layer 2 here. Let's go ahead and duplicate that one. Move it, rotate it, adjust it, morph it, however you want, accept it, and there we go. Looks like a butterfly there. Duplicate the original again, move it, resize it, rotate it, distort it, perspective it, if you want to do it that way. Perspective. Alright. Rotate it a little bit more so it's like this. And how about right there? That looks pretty good. Zoom out, see what that looks like. Alright. Duplicate the original and just keep on doing this lots of times. Actually, let's do this. Alright. Alright. So this is a pretty long process as well. Things that look really cool take a long time to do, and I like to do things manually, and it's a pretty long process. So now once you have this batch here, you can actually merge them all if you like that. Duplicate it. So now we have a larger area to work with. So now we can rotate it, resize it, distort it, warp it. Alright. Move it. Control click the original layer and delete because I do not want them to interfere with each other. Okay, as you can see there, it's like a top view of a tree or a large patch of grass that you can sometimes see when you're walking around. We can actually merge it, duplicate it, bring up the size like you see here. Put it below the original layer and decrease the opacity. So lots of things you can do with this. Select them both, move them to the center. You want to keep the outside areas cleared because you want it to have that smooth transition. Unless you want to have a completely perfect box for a large patch of grass. But you can see where this is going. And if I show you the original grass texture, let's go ahead and open recent grass tile. As you can see here, I did the same thing with the middle one. I just created I made them white instead of the same color. You can do that too. And then they had a black stroke. But the outside areas are not modified. So we have that smooth transition. And then we have a large patch of grass here. and then smooth transition. Then we have a dead, the grass is dying here. And then I also created a dying square grass here. And then I just did the same thing. And then the perfectly square dirt right there. And then for each of the types of grass, the normal grass, the dying grass, and the dirt, I created the dirt tiles for each one of those. So that's what we can do for the grass tile. We can keep on building this up. But you can see where this is going. We just adjust that base layer. Move it around. Oh, not that one. The one that's above here. Original. This is just the name. Okay. This is the dark patch below grass. That's the second time I've spelled grass like that today. Alright, so let's duplicate the original. And again, move it, distort it, rotate it, skew it, warp it, however you want to adjust it. And just repeat this process until you come up with something really cool looking. And if you want it to be outside of here, but you do not want it to touch the borders, you can keep it above the... You can have them overlap, and if you want that overlapping visuals, you can. But what I like to do is I like to control-click the original layer and delete the one that I'm working on right now. So that way, it deleted what the original layer had. So there's really no overlapping going on. So that looks like a pretty good dark patch. Duplicate the original. Rotate it, warp it, skew it, distort it. The usual techniques. You can even adjust the opacity, and I didn't work with the blend mode. You might want to look at that. Look at normal. You saw that had a little light area, light vertical line here. So if I change it to darken, it kind of blended in with this other one. So yeah, you can create a cool dark patch, and that'll expand on that. If you want to do this before you tile it, you can do that as well. Kind of makes it more interesting. So this is how you create more advanced grass. You just use the basic brush tool. You create a new layer above your base layer. Get out the brush tool. And for this tutorial, I used the same color. I just picked one of the colors at random and did a brush. But for the actual graphic, I used white. And I did a brush. And then I changed blending options to have a black stroke, 1 pixel. Lowered opacity. And lowered opacity for the main layer as well. And resized it. I'm going to zoom in here. Lower it a little bit more. So we can have a light spot here. We can create a little lighter patch of grass there. So there's multiple ways you can do that. I'm going to go ahead and delete that since we're working on the dark patch. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this and show you the end result that I come up with. Okay, I just wanted to do another quick tip. As you can see, there's not much difference here. But as I mentioned a few minutes ago, that you can modify this, make this the actual tile that you want to tile it. So we build on the base one, and if we want to make this tileable, as you can see, it went outside of the textured areas. So what we want to do, it's original copy 5. So what we want to do here is we want to zoom in pretty close, grab the selection tool, marquee tool, and go ahead and select everything up until the vertical line here. So you just want to select this area. Duplicate that, so Control J on Windows, Command J on Mac. So now we just have that area duplicated. Go ahead and select original copy 5 again, and go ahead and select that area again, and delete. Okay, so now this needs to be up here. So layer 1 needs to be up there. Remember, we're going to tile it. So this needs to be at the very top of there. So now this, there is no left area. It'll follow through the right area. And so what we need to do here is we need to do the same thing. Select it for this horizontal line. Original copy 5. Duplicate that. Go back to original copy 5. And delete that. So now this needs to follow through to the right side. So layer 2 needs to go all the way to the right side. And original copy 5, we have this area left, so let's go ahead and select it. Now this will follow through the top right area. So we select it, duplicate it, go back to the layer, select it again, and delete it. Layer 3, that needs to go to the top right. So let's go ahead and bring up the guides here. Alright. So that's how we just made that tileable. So let's go ahead and create a group here, call this working tile. Move everything inside this group. Now, we need to duplicate this group. So we move everything inside that group up. As you can see, we have that transition. Duplicate this group again. Move everything here. Duplicate this group again. Move everything here. So we have that perfect tileable transition there. So it's pretty obvious that there's going to be a pattern. As you can see, we have the same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. But that's what you want to look out for. If you want it that way, I'm sure if we make all this stuff darker, things will blend in a little bit more. But you get the idea of where I was going. If you wanted to create a tileable area, it went outside the bounds. So if it went below the bottom, you need to move it to the top. If it went past the left, you want to move it to the right. If it went diagonal in any direction, you need to move it to the other diagonal. So if it was down here, you need to move it to the top right. If it was down here, you need to move it to the top left. If it was up here, you need to move it to the bottom right. If it was up here, you need to move it to the bottom left. So that's the idea, and that was a quick tip for you. Let me go ahead and get this finished up, and then I'll show you my result. Right, so this is my end result in a tileable view. If we just look at it the way it was originally, this is what it came up with. And I just kept on duplicating that original layer and resizing it, distorting it, and making it tileable like I mentioned a few minutes ago. And this is what I came up with. And a good thing to keep in mind that the more complex stuff you throw in these textures, the more of a pattern you will see. So you can see, we see the same exact line here, 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 here. So just keep that in mind. If you want it to be obvious like a pattern, you can make it a complex design. If you want to make it a complex design but do not want to make it an obvious pattern, you can always make a sequence. Like we have that main grass tile. There's a sequence. You can make a sequence here that this will follow this, and these two will follow this one, and things like that. But this doesn't look that bad. You can definitely see a pattern, but it does not look that bad, tileable. Like I said, just create a sequence if you want it to make it less obvious. But otherwise, that's how you create more advanced grass. This looks like it'll be like a rough terrain instead of the standard grass tile here or here. So for the base layer, you want to make it as simple as possible. And if we just have one rough terrain followed by, obviously this was tileable, so you'll see just a square here, but if we did not have that, we would just have a single blob of stuff here. So let me go ahead and hide some layers, see if I can bring that back. Okay, let's do the original dark patch below. Not that one, not that one. So it looks like that's about it, and then I focused on making it tileable. Oh, there's one too. Here's one too. So yeah, you can just have a dark patch, a random dark patch be displayed here, and that will kind of spice things up. You can have it in several places. You can have several different dark patches, and it'll just make a more dynamic look to the map. And that's what we'll look at when we look at the complete game. I created several dark patches and several different... this is version 1 of the grass tile. There's going to be several of these patches and several dead patches and several dirt patches and things like that. That'll kind of make things interesting. But that's how you create more advanced grass. A very simple technique. You just got to do a lot of repetition for this. Just do a single drawing. Or you can draw multiple ones. Let me go ahead and do more and more demonstration, and then I'll end the tutorial. So you can, let me go ahead and change this display. Let's actually turn the display on, but let's work above it. Okay, so we can create several lines here, kind of make things unique. So you can start out with a nice design, several different grass here, and then actually go into the blending options and strokes. So it does not have to be a single little line that you create. Then you can resize that, change the opacity, resize that, and then use that as the original. Move it around, distort it, things like that. So that's how you can create more advanced grass and how you can be creative with it. I will provide this grass tile. It will just be in JPEG format only. I will not release this PSD until the very end of the series, so you will have access to just this square here. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope the last tutorial you got an understanding on how to make things tileable by using the pencil tool and the both the dodge and burn tool. And I hope in this tutorial you learned how to create more advanced grass. You can mess with the blending options, you can mess with the colors, you can make things darker, brighter, you can make things more dead, so bring out the browns, and make things more green, so really make them bright green if you want to. Otherwise just make them like a static color and just duplicate, resize, things like that. That's how you create more advanced grass. And like I said, the more complex you want the grass to be, the more obvious it will be when it's a pattern. So just keep that in mind. I recommend just using that one small patch I showed you before, and put that in random places in your map. It'll be less obvious that there will be a pattern. You can create multiple versions of these, multiple different sizes, multiple different shapes, and just put those randomly across the map. But there you go. Hope to see you next time.